Welcome to Game Changer Live. My name is Daniel Connor, and I am thrilled to have you here with us today. We were created to inspire with topics around coaching, positive mindset, and more, and we feature guests twice a month. We're live every week on Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so join us next week for another episode. And um, one of the reasons why we go live, I want to explain that real quick, is that it gives us an opportunity to mess up. And if we're so controlled and so perfect all of the time, we're not taking the opportunity to grow. And that's one of the things that we talk about on this channel. So we want to be the change that we want to see in the world. We are here live, which means that we're here authentically, and that who you see on the camera right across from you is who you would get to meet if you were to work with us. Our motto for this channel is Together We Inspire, and so let's get inspired today. I am joined by my guest, Jodi Hummer. Jodi is a PCC certified coach who specializes in major life transitions, such as divorce, career. She was here talking with us a few months ago about divorce coaching specifically. But I want to just give you an opportunity to hear how you've affected my life, Jodi. You are the reason that I started volunteering in my local chapter of the International Coaching Federation. You were in a position, a similar position at the time, and you recruited me. And it's been a remarkable transition for me, a remarkable change. And I just wanted you to hear that. So thank you so much for being here with us and talking to us. Today, you're going to be talking to us about why people might want to hire a coach. And so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your kind words about the ICF chapter. As you know, I'm a pretty genuine and honest person, and I'm glad that your experience has been what I hoped it would be, which was, essentially what my experience was. And I'm thrilled for you that it's going well. And yeah, can't say enough good things about that. So yay.
Yay. Well, let's get started. There are two standard questions that I always ask everyone when they join in my show, and that is to tell me about yourself and your coaching business.
Sure. So, as you mentioned earlier to the audience, I specialize in life transitions, including divorce and career coaching. I parallel those two and have chosen those two specialty areas because they are so similar in the sense that an upheaval in one or the other is one of the two biggest upheavals in a person's life, maybe the third being having a child. In saying that, the interesting and unique experiences that I've had going through those life transitions are times where, and by the way, the majority of those experiences were before I even know what coaching was. So my approach has been to work with people to help them understand how they can find the light at the end of the tunnel, how they can find a new chapter, how they can learn to manage their space, their situation, take control of it versus letting it take control of them. And so that's a lot of how I approach my business and why I chose divorce and career.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So, given what you're here to talk to us about today, who in the audience, who's listening today that really is going to benefit from what you want to talk to me about?
So, for today's conversation and specifically today's topic, I think it's somebody who just is really curious about coaching. They really want to understand what it is. They want to understand if it could be a benefit to them, if it could be a benefit to someone else, to maybe differentiate it from some of the other professions out there, such as counseling and advising and the many other ways that people work together in a one on one relationship. And so, hopefully, anyone who's listening today gets a much clearer perspective on what they'd be doing if they decided to engage a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so important. Well, let's get started with a real basic question. What is your definition, or how do you define coaching as a mode?
So it's interesting because when I hear the word coach, or maybe for the last 50 years before I got into coaching, or maybe that was the previous 40, um, I thought of coach as like a sports coach, right? I thought it's somebody who, you think about a football coach, they get the players out on the field and they organize what they're doing and they teach them to do it better. And they're, kind of manipulating in a positive way, a situation to help someone move forward in whatever it is they're trying to learn. as I learned about professional coaching, what we now define as coaching under the International Coach Federation, it is far different. When I'm acting in a coaching mode, when I'm playing my role, I'm not advising anyone. I am helping a person dig deep to understand what's going on inside that they're having trouble accessing, that they're having trouble getting clarity around. And so my definition of coaching is using appropriate questions, powerful questions to help a person source what they may already know, but they just can't seem to figure out, and help them use that information to move forward, help them use that information to um, uh, essentially, create beauty in their lives. And so for me, coaching is something that frankly, almost anyone could use unless you're just terrific at doing this yourself. And so it just depends on a person's time and in their life. But for me, coaching is something that really helps provide people clarity without being told what to do, really pulling from within inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved what you said earlier about it kind of comparing to other different types of similar occupations, therapists, mentors, consultants. They all come in with an agenda, right? They all come in telling you how to fix or improve your life. And coaching is radically different in that, um, and I think it was put best by my coach training program, for me, so I understood it, was that coaching isn't about someone else having the answers. Coaching is about having faith that the client that you're coaching has all of the answers and all of the information that they need, that no one else has ever walked in their shoes more than they have, but that we get stuck and we have these needs for validation, and we have these needs for um, we have a need to talk it out, right? Talk it out and listen to ourselves say something
Absolutely.
fearlessly. So that's important, I think, to add in there. Uh,
No, that's spot on. And there are times I think, especially in our professional lives or in certain situations where we do seek advice from others. We do need guidance and support. At the end of the day, though, we're the one that makes the decision. Are we going to implement whatever someone has suggested? And with coaching, you are, as you put it a minute ago, acting as the expert of your own life. You're the one who's living it. You're the one that's doing it. You're the one that's going to experience the positive or negative repercussions of whatever decision you make. So you are the expert. You are the best person to make that decision. And to your point about talking it through, that's what allows a person to make sure they're making the best decision. It isn't just making a list of pros and cons. It's really thinking it through and understanding what the desired outcome would be and what's going to get a person there.
yeah, and I think we could talk endlessly about this subject, right? I think we're both very passionate about coaching,
Of
but
course.
I think that there are emotions tied to these decisions, and sometimes those emotions are really hard to access in a logical space of just writing it out on a list. That you actually
Absolutely.
have to talk it out and with someone else to feel that shame or guilt that you're holding yourself back with, or whatever emotion is going on, so that that can help you understand what's going on in your life and what you want to see out of it.
So true. I mean, one of the things that I say to my clients quite often, I even said it earlier today, is suddenly emptying the dishwasher is one of the most powerful and magical experiences the person is going to aim for, because going to do mindless things like emptying a dishwasher just keeps me from having to think about this difficult thing that I'm struggling with, that to your point the emotions are surrounding and that I just can't seem to figure out. So I'm just going to go do something mindless so that I can check it off the list and deal with this later. So
Yeah.
yeah, the talking it through with somebody else. And I think that perhaps one of my greatest compliments and something that I hear from clients is, first off, they'll say that's a great question. So I love that I've picked up on what they needed to talk about and get into the right detail with them. But also at the end of a session when they say, "Gosh, this is exactly what I needed." Right? We may have spent an hour talking through something that they have been fighting with, in some cases for years, often cases months, weeks, or even days, hours. But just having that opportunity to talk it through is such a great experience for people. And especially when you're talking with somebody who isn't biased, who isn't engaged in the outcome. We can talk to friends, we can talk to family, but they're going to have their opinions. And a good coach isn't going to offer their opinion. Even if I'm asked my opinion, I come back to a client and I say, let's turn that around. Let's talk about What are your thoughts on that? You're asking me, but I want to know what you think.
Okay.
And so it all comes back to, again, you being the expert, as you put it earlier, and accessing what's inside.
Yeah. We don't have an agenda is another way of putting that, right? We don't have the agenda of your mother wanting you to
That's right.
be successful. And so what that means is that the judgment that you fear from other people is non-existent with a coach or almost non-existent with a coach, right? And
Right.
it helps, I think, for me, from my clients' perspectives, because we with perfectionism, which is my focus, um, there it's a lot about what other people think of you. And when you have a coach that's impartial that you work with because you trust them and they're in that kind of service mode, it gives an opportunity for them to actually recognize those judgments for what they are of internal
Absolutely.
fear. So,
Oh,
yeah, it's such a powerful tool. So I guess what we're talking about really is how does coaching work? Are there any other things about what makes coaching magical that you want to add to that?
absolutely. And I think this is a part that people don't do as much on their own. They may be able to think through something, come up with a potential solution, but do they keep thinking about it all the way through to the end? And so a big part of coaching in the process is not only accessing the ideas, getting some things out on the table, making a decision, creating an action plan, but recognizing what may stop me from moving forward. And a huge part of coaching that I employ is helping a person understand in advance what barriers might hold you back. And I think a good coach will ask that of their client and then hold space. Wait for the client to think about anything that could possibly derail that action plan that they just came up with. And then as they come up with each item, which could be anything from not enough time, my kids might need something, uh, work gets in the way. There's always something that somebody comes up with. And so we stop with that and say, okay, so if that happens, how can you overcome it? And or will that be your priority? Because for the client, it's important for them to understand if my kid needs something, then I'm going to put this on the back burner. And I might have said I'm going to do it by this Friday, but my kid needs something now. So I'm going to say I'm going to have it done by Saturday or Sunday or even Monday. And so what we do is we talk through it so that if things come up, if those barriers come around, they're prepared for them. They're not going to judge themselves even further by them. They're not going to get on themselves for not having accomplished their goals. They're going to recognize, yeah, I thought this might happen. And so now I kind of have a plan in place to know if it does, how am I going to proceed? What do I expect of myself? And will I let that be a priority or will I somehow keep this at the forefront?
Yeah.
So that's a big part of the coaching process is understanding what barriers might stand in the way. Another piece that I think is interesting about the coaching process is visualizing and understanding values from the outset. And one of the things that I love to do with clients, I have an exercise that I do very often where I help a person really understand what is most deeply important to them, helping them understand what their drivers are, helping them understand what really kind of cranks the wheel, keeps them going, right?
Mhm.
And so understanding that and then being able to use that information as they tell me, well, in the future, I would like to have this, or I would like to see this. As that happens, I can help them draw back to those original, value statements or things that they've shared with me that are most important to them to say, in what way will this fulfill X, Y, or Z? And so it's really helping a person dig deep, not just into whatever individual situation they may be dealing with that day, but tying it all together for the bigger picture and ensuring, again, that they're going to have success in moving forward. And that when they do move forward, it checks a lot of boxes, that they really feel as though it has helped them, uh, frankly, deep down at the level of what's most important to them, to what they value the most.
I really love that. And those values are so important because sometimes there's conflict in those values, right? That you have value
Absolutely.
A and you have value B, but they're in conflict with this specific topic, right? Like I
Absolutely.
can't have both of these things. So having that, it's one thing to have those things, every human being does, but to have them consciously, to have them in your heart and to have them on paper or in a video call or to have an accountability partner who knows what those things are for you, that seems invaluable to me.
Absolutely. And I find that people will use that a lot in their future life. I have to laugh, and I hope this doesn't offend any listeners, but clients that I've had in the past, I used to do a group session and they came up with the acronym WWJD, which I refer to really as WWJA for anyone who may follow this in a religious capacity. It's what would Jesus do? And so they all said, what would Jodi do? And I said, well, what would Jodi ask? Because once you've discovered what some of those rudimentary core values are, when you really understand what's most important to you, in a future decision, you don't need a Jodi or a coach at all times to help you access what decision you want to make. You can go through those motions once you've learned how to do it, knowing what is most important to you, knowing when you're in conflict with your values, knowing when your values are in conflict with one another. And so it's a really interesting aspect to employing a coach and having that as a part of your life because it can give you such great clarity for
It's
many situations in the
it's like
future.
hiring a trainer at a gym, except that it's about your mind and it's about your soul and it's about your what makes you a you, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
going to a coach really strengthens that inner wisdom that helps you tap into that special knowledge that only you can possess about yourself.
It's a great analogy. Emotional health versus physical health, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And emotional wellness, I just want to say, because it's not just
Yeah.
about treating illness. In fact, it isn't. Coaching isn't the right modality for treating illness, just like going to a gym and working with a trainer isn't the right modality for illness. That's a physical therapist, right? Not a trainer
Absolutely.
at the gym, where the trainer at the gym is going to help you get stronger to prevent injury in the future, right? And
Absolutely.
that's really what coaching can help with in terms of mental wellness.
Absolutely. And you bring up a great point because a lot of people ask me about the difference between counseling and coaching. And what I speak to when I give my own personal definition of this is that a therapist is helping a person become healthy, right? To live life at ground level zero, to feel that they're living their lives normally, to feel as though they are operating in a space of wellness and life is normal. Coaches are there to help enhance normal. Coaches are there to say, why live life at 100% when you can live at 120%, 150%? And I believe I brought this up in our last discussion last year. To me, life's too short. Why not make the most of it? And if a coach can help you figure that out and understand what you're missing in your life and what would really give you the greatest value in your life experience, gosh, that's worth a lot of money. It's worth a lot of effort and time. Although it doesn't necessarily take that much effort and time or money.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. And it's really about wish fulfillment, right? It's about becoming the person that you really want to be. And
Sure,
I can't think of something more worthy to spend time, money, and resources on than that.
absolutely.
So, what? So, tell me about the journey that a client might take. If they're beginning this process, what is going to cause them to want to seek out or see to hire a coach in that first instance? What is really driving that need?
To me, in one word, frustration. Right? If I feel some level of frustration with a certain situation, with myself, I feel like I'm stuck. I can't move forward. It's that whole essence of getting unstuck that a coach can offer. And when somebody feels like, yeah, I got this, I can figure it out. And then a week later, yeah, that didn't work, but I got this, I can figure it out. And a week later, yeah, I've chosen not to think about this because I can't figure it out, but I'll eventually figure it out. When they're going through that process over and over and they're feeling frustrated and stuck, that's the time to access a coach and say, can you help me through this? Because the idea here is that a coach can help you think of ways of approaching the situation or ways to think about the situation that you wouldn't necessarily normally think, or that a friend or family member might not necessarily ask you to think. And so it's just a matter of recognizing when you're in a situation in your life. And again, my specialties are divorce and career. So it's a person saying, "Gosh, I'm no longer in this marriage. I'm no longer in this relationship. Um, I know I need to move forward, but I'm struggling. I can't quite figure out how." That's an opportunity for coaching. For a person that's in a career situation that says, yeah, I keep showing up every day for work and the paycheck's, not bad or it's good. It's keeping me coming back, but it's also because I can't figure out what I want to be when I grow up. I don't know what I want to do next. These essences of feeling stuck or just not being able to move forward or feeling frustrated with knowing that there's something more out there, something that you can grasp. I used the analogy earlier, light at the end of the tunnel. And you may have heard some people say, I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I want to make sure it's not another train coming. Right. And so the idea is that that light is out there. You know that you can do it without another train coming at you. And so you're trying to get to that light and you're struggling. That frustration, that feeling of struggle and being stuck, that's the time to talk to a coach.
Yeah. When we were originally discussing what we were going to talk about, this idea came up, and I'm just going to ask you the question. When does a person not realize that they could use coaching?
I think it's back to a little bit of what I was saying earlier. You think you can figure it out on your own, right? And you're banging your head against a wall or beating yourself on the head, whatever those phrases are. What's the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over and never succeeding, right? And so I think the person that does not realize they need coaching is the person that's out there, again, struggling. They're stuck. They are trying. It's not to say they're not trying, and it's not to say that it's not important to them, but they're not recognizing how much easier it could be if they just had someone to talk it through.
Yeah.
And I have a client right now who is so openly appreciative of this particular fact. When we talk about certain things, this person will say to me, gosh, again, that's either a great question, or I hadn't thought about it that way, or I'm really glad you asked me that because now that I'm thinking about it, XYZ.
Yeah.
And so it's that ability to move something forward where that person that maybe doesn't realize they could use a coach is out there just floundering, just really frustrated, really stuck.
Yeah, they might feel like they're on a hamster wheel where they
Mhm.
get some movement, but then they realize that they're right back where they started from and no progress was actually made. But they
I
spent a lot of effort getting there.
I talk. There's another analogy that I often use where I say, if you're leaving your driveway and you don't know where you're going, let's say you live in the middle of the United States and you're not sure if you're going to go to California or to New York, you might not know whether or not to turn right or left. And so you get to the bottom of your driveway and you're sitting there and you make the turn. You decide, okay, I'm going to go right, and then you go to the next stop sign, you make a left. The next stop sign, you make a right, and at the next light, you could find yourself driving all day long, trying so hard to get there, but because you didn't know where you were going and you didn't have a road map,
Hmm.
you're on the hamster wheel. You find yourself right back at the driveway at the end of the day, and you're like, my gosh, I've been driving all day. How did I end back in the exact same spot I was in this morning? Right. So, yeah, absolutely, hamster wheel or driving in circles, whatever it might be. These are the situations where a person just is really struggling, and it's normal. It's natural. I mean, I've employed my own coach, right? I mean, we as human beings are not always going to know the answer to everything off the top of our head. It doesn't always come perfectly and easily. And so the idea of using a coach is just to access what's there, but that just seems blocked.
Yep. It's a little bit like having AI that's totally centered around what's the best way I can get through this moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's not artificial. It's real.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Well, fortunately, AI hasn't gotten into our brains completely yet. Maybe at some point AI can help us figure that out, but I'm a little afraid of those days.
I don't know. I don't know. I think that the moment that we are capable of figuring out other human beings and what makes them work is the moment that AI could potentially have that skill set. But I don't know that AI is capable of understanding the complexity of human beings both wanting and not wanting the same thing at the same time, which is a perfectly human thing to experience.
Absolutely. Push pull.
Well, what else might be happening in a person's life that might suggest that a coach would be the right addition to their team of support?
That's a great question because there are so many different types of coaching. And I know, Daniel, you've met several of these folks too. I feel like I hear about a new coaching specialty, a coaching niche
Yep.
every week. Um, some of the bigger categories are spiritual, wellness and health, executive leadership coaching. Again, I mentioned the relationship and career transition coaching. Um, I
Career coach.
recently came across somebody who specialized in ADHD coaching.
Yep.
I know There's somebody who works in breathwork coaching. There's numerous areas and such a variety of people out there that specialize. So I think it's quite interesting. I know from chatting with you, there's a perfectionism coaching component, right? And there are others, people that are concerned about dementia and memory loss, those that are just really struggling with life in general. That's just general life coaching. So there's numerous ways to access. I think, we see some of the bigger buckets, the executive leadership coaching and spiritual and wellness coaching and things like that. But ultimately, it kind of comes back to the same thing. And most people that I know that do leadership coaching, I used to do it myself. You end up getting into bigger issues, right? And so it runs a parallel.
Because the issue is never really the issue, right? There's always something that's a little bit deeper. And a coach that's worth their salt is going to dig that for those clams, if you will. I've never dug for clams, but
Something like that.
but I know that they're hidden deep in the sand. So you want to dig down into that sand to get the good stuff out of there so that real change happens, right? Because real change happens at the deep core, not at the surface. That's what makes it a perfect solution for that hamster wheel to get off.
Absolutely.
Because the hamster wheel has to get destroyed in order for the for those clams to be found. What a
Well, I
weird
don't know about
analogy
you.
I created.
Well, and I'm not sure about you, but I've had clients say to me, "Gosh, I wish I had done this some time ago." Right? And
Yes.
and the reality is, it's never too late. I mean, you could be in your 80s and experiencing coaching and saying, "Wow, yeah, maybe I wish I did this when I was 70, 60, 50, whatever." But the reality is, it's helping me today. And so the timing is never better, and the timing is not worse. It's a matter of when a person really feels that pull and says, "Yeah, this is. I'm going to try this out." Right? And the beautiful thing is, most coaches that I know operate similar to me. We do an introductory session. And if that person is not right for me, or I'm not right for them, or I don't feel like I can support them, um, I refer them on to someone else who can. And or I had somebody just maybe 4 or 5 months ago who said, "I'm not sure I'm ready for this." And they said, "Will you call me back in 6 months?" And I said, "Absolutely." Because it isn't just like the nature of what coaching does. It isn't up to me. It isn't up to you. It isn't up to anybody except the client. What is happening, where they want to go, if they're ready to move forward, just like anything in life.
Yeah. It's all about fit. One of the reasons why I did this channel is I knew that I was going to attract clients by being myself authentically, by sharing who I am, sharing what they could benefit from by hiring me, and sharing that platform with coaches like you so that you could have an opportunity to do that, because not everyone out there who's going to watch this show is going to want me as a coach. A lot of them are going to want you as a coach. They're going to fit better with you. And this is such an important relationship that fit is the number one thing that we look for when we go into those meetings. Am I the right coach for you? Is coaching even the right modality for you? Because some people need to do some work with therapy before they're ready for doing some coaching. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that fit is super important. And I think that that's also like a red flag for a coach. If the coach is like, oh no, you should push, we should, you need me specifically. That's a red flag.
Yeah.
That's a walk a different path.
Well, most of us are not specialists in the sales arena, myself included, and I'm never here to sell it. I'm here to educate and be there for the person who needs it, who is ready, who feels I'm the right fit,
Right.
and that should be the case. I think with any coach, hopefully that's most folks' approach, or at least most that I've met. It seems to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's drilled in our heads too if we've gone to ICF accredited schools. Um,
Absolutely.
well, we've talked a little bit about the timing for when we would hire a coach, but I guess my question is, how long do results last?
So I think it depends on the length of the engagement with the coach, and or I certainly have some clients that just pick up on things pretty quickly and they get it right, versus the one that kind of needs a little bit longer to for it to process and for them to make a habitual shift, making changes to the way they approach things in their process. And so I would just say that the essence of the um, engagement and the power that a person gets out of it, uh, that will determine, where it can go in the future. There's nothing wrong with a person calling me back and saying, hey, I feel like I need to re-engage. I want to work with you again. And I've had this happen a few times. And then we get to talking and I start asking some of the questions. They're like, oh yes, I knew this. I knew you'd ask me this. Right. So similar to what I was saying before, the engagement can last for years. Assuming that a person, kind of stays with it, remembers what their coach educated them around, or what they helped them see in terms of their values, and what questions to ask themselves, how to recognize barriers before they come up and get frustrating, all those kinds of things. So I think that the results can last for years and years, depending on the person and depending on the level to which they commit to it.
Yeah, it's all about awareness and consciousness. So how long does that last, right?
Right.
If you're
Right.
aware of a new way of thinking and over time that shifts and you become less conscious of it, then that's about the expiration date. But if you're the kind of person who holds on to that kind of wisdom and finds ways to actively keep it up, I suppose it
Right.
lasts longer.
Right.
So we're getting close to the end of our show. I have two last questions for you, and I
Sure.
know you got to get going. So the first question is who, um, sorry, if there was a person in the audience who was just going to carry out one thing from this cornucopia of information about coaching, what would that look like?
Myself included, any one of us could stop and think about where we are in our lives, where we want to be in our lives, what's keeping us from getting there. And if there's a major barrier, a brick wall that's keeping a person from moving forward that they just can't seem to get past, that would be my impetus as an individual to say, yeah, you know what, I think it's time to engage somebody else to support me in this. And again, I mentioned that I've used my own coach. I'm working with someone right now who I contacted when I got to that point of, yeah, this is something that I just can't seem to get past. I'm going at it from this direction, I'm going at it from this direction. I keep poking away, but I'm not making the progress I want to. And so if there's a person in the audience that says, yeah, I'm not quite where I want to be, I want to be at 150%, I want to live my life to the fullest, and I'm not quite there, and I'm not quite sure how to get there, that would be the reason to try chatting with a coach.
My last question, super important, the most important question of the day. How can
Okay.
people find you? How can people learn more about you and connect with you in case they are a good match?
Sure. So my website is calderacoaching.com. That's CALDERACOACHING.com. It is the name of my practice. And if you go to my website, you'll find out exactly why I liken coaching to a caldera. If you know what a caldera is, or if you don't, you'll learn it when you get to my website. But that's the best way to reach me. You can also just ping me at jodi.hummer@gmail.com, because I still use my Gmail. And then if anyone needs to call or text, can be reached at 704-779-5999.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us, Jodi. It's been a delight to have you at our show. And thank you to the audience for tuning in and listening to the show. Um, if you want to give back to the community just a moment of your time to subscribe to the channel, like this specific video, and share it with someone who might be questioning whether or not coaching is something that they want to invite into their life, please do that. Please feel free. And leave a note in the comment about what inspired you today, because it's all about inspiration on our channel. Next week, we'll be talking more about fighting back against perfection. So tune in every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on this channel, and I will see you then. Bye.